the heart of the Asia Pacific, in the Korean capital of Seoul, a new media paradigm has emerged. Welcome to the Global News Forum, breaking the news in the Media 3.0 era. Breaking the news has changed since the age of newspapers, the dawn of radio, the debut of television, and the introduction of living color. Breaking the news has changed since the rise of the internet, social media, and smart devices. Today, the world's stories unfold faster. Now, we begin the first ever Global News Forum, breaking the news in the Media 3.0 era. In a few moments, you will join the world's top newsroom decision makers and observe the intersection of news and technology. Exchange the latest ideas in this fast and seamless smart conference environment. In partnership with the ABU News Group meeting, join the dialogue with colleagues representing a rich variety of Asia-Pacific voices. Welcome to the Korean capital of Seoul, host of the Global News Forum, a city with a history, and a city in constant flux. At the heart of the cultural Korean wave, home to the famous Gangnam District, a city at the global crossroads of politics, culture, and technology. KBS has the challenge and privilege of covering this city every day. Journalists here work around the clock with the latest tools of the industry, embracing the digital age, holding closely to truth and impartiality. Prepare to take your place in history at the first ever Global News Forum, where keynote speakers and panel discussions will challenge you, where fellow news professionals will inspire you, the Global News Forum starts right now.
여러분 안녕하십니까? 대한민국의 KBS와 아시아 태평양 방송연맹 ABU가 공동으로 주관하는 글로벌 뉴스 포럼에 참가하신 여러분을 진심으로 환영합니다. 그리고 이 자리에 참석해 주신 대한민국 방송통신위원회 이경재 위원장님과 자바드 모타기 ABU 사무총장님, 그리고 오늘 기조 발제를 맡아주신 BBC의 리차드 포터 글로벌 뉴스 본부장님께 감사드립니다. 이번 포럼은 급변하는 디지털 미디어 환경 속에서 방송과 저널리즘이 처한 위기와 기회, 그리고 나아가야 할 방향을 모색하기 위해서 마련한 자리입니다. 미디어와 저널리즘의 현재와 미래를 조망하는 글로벌 뉴스 포럼에 참석하신 모든 분들을 KBS 한국방송을 대표해서 다시 한번 환영합니다. 오늘 포럼의 주제는 미디어 3.0 시대 뉴스의 길을 찾자입니다. 언제 어디서든 원하는 정보와 뉴스에 접근할 수 있는 지금의 시대는 방송과 통신이 융합하고 또 뉴스의 생산자와 소비자가 융합하는 미디어 3.0 시대입니다. 스마트 기기와 소셜 미디어로 대변되는 디지털 미디어의 혁신은 방송과 저널리즘 종사자들이 처한 미디어 환경의 현실이면서 또한 방송 환경 진화의 방향이기도 합니다. 그동안 입법부와 행정부, 사법부에 이어서 제4부로서 비판과 견제의 기능, 그리고 사회적 통합의 역할을 해온 언론의 가장 중요한 책무는 신속하고 정확한 뉴스 보도입니다. 그러나 지금은 스마트 기기와 소셜미디어의 혁신으로 누구나 뉴스의 생산자가 될 수가 있고 또한 뉴스의 속보성이 획기적으로 증대하고 있습니다. 하지만 한편으로는 객관적인 사실조차 확인되지 않은 부정확한 뉴스가 양산이 되고 그것이 순식간에 인터넷 공간으로 퍼져나가는 시대이기도 합니다. 이것이 바로 오늘 우리가 미디어 3.0 시대에 언론에 나아갈 길을 함께 논의하는 이유이자 주제입니다. 오늘 이 자리에는 NHK와 CCTV 등 아시아 태평양 지역 언론인들을 비롯해서 BBC, CNN, 알자지라 등 세계 유수의 글로벌 미디어 전문가들이 함께 모였습니다. 또한 미디어 3.0 시대의 중요한 뉴스 공급원이면서 새로운 뉴스 파트너인 트위터와 유튜브 관계자도 한자리에 모였습니다. 따라서 이번 포럼은 디지털 미디어 영향에 관한 다양한 시각은 물론 아시아의 현황과 비전을 점검할 수 있는 좋은 기회가 될 것입니다. 이번 글로벌 뉴스 포럼은 주제에 맞춰서 스마트 회의로 기획을 했습니다. 즉 참가자들이 스마트 기기를 통해서 연사나 다른 참가자들과 즉각적인 쌍방향 커뮤니케이션을 활발히 할 수 있고 또 포럼의 내용이 인터넷을 통해서 전 세계에 실시간으로 중계될 것입니다. 스마트 회의로 진행되는 이번 포럼에 참가하는 것 자체가 미디어 3.0 시대의 방송 환경을 경험할 수 있는 좋은 기회이기도 합니다. 마지막으로 저 먼 곳 아프리카로부터 유럽, 아랍, 남미, 북미 그리고 아시아 태평양 지역에까지 전 세계 각 지역을 대표하는 언론인 여러분들께 역사와 문화가 살아 숨쉬는 한류의 중심이자 IT 강국 대한민국 서울에 오신 것을 다시 한번 환영합니다. 언론은 공정하고 정의로운 사회를 구현하는 데 가장 필수적인 요소입니다. 오늘 글로벌 뉴스 포럼에서 토론하는 내용들이 미디어 3.0 시대에 걸맞는 신속하고 정확한 그리고 신뢰받는 언론의 길을 모색하는 데 큰 도움이 될 것을 기대하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
길환영 KBS 사장님, 자바드 모타기 ABU 사무총장님, 전 세계 각지에서 오신 저널리스트 여러분, 글로벌 ICT 메카 대한민국에 오신 것을 진심으로 환영합니다. 특별히 포럼을 성공적으로 주최한 KBS에게도 축하를 드립니다. 대한민국 대표방송 KBS의 글로벌 리더십이 아주 자랑스럽습니다. 사흘 전 바로 이 자리에서 대통령님을 모시고 대한민국 방송의 날 반세기를 기념하는 뜻깊은 해에 이처럼 의미 있는 행사가 개최되어 매우 기쁩니다. 저는 얼마 전에 미국에 개최된 정전 60주년 행사에 참석했습니다. 현직 대통령으로서는 처음으로 참석한 오바마 미국 대통령은 전쟁으로 폐허됐던 대한민국의 발전을 아주 극찬을 했습니다. 한국의 발전 중심에는 IT 그리고 미디어가 있었습니다. 지상파에 이어 케이블 TV, 위성, IPTV 등 뉴미디어 등의 등장으로 수백 개의 채널을 볼 수 있는 다매체 다채널 시대가 열렸습니다. 모바일 기기를 통해서 언제 어디서나 방송을 볼 수 있는 스마트 혁명도 이미 시작되었습니다. 뉴스를 보는 방식도 신문 방송뿐 아니라 트위터, 유튜브 등 소셜미디어까지 다양합니다. 최근 세계를 놀라게 한 글로벌 언론사 워싱턴 포스트의 매각 소식은 이러한 변화의 한 단면이라고 생각을 합니다. 그러나 이러한 미디어 스마트 혁명으로 인한 우리 사회의 또 다른 역기능도 무시할 수 없습니다. 객관적이지 않고 부정확한 정보가 범람하고 인터넷상 명예훼손 등 사이버 폭력도 심각합니다. 정부의 언어 탄압도 여전하고 광고주가 보도 내용을 왜곡하는 등 언론에 대한 자본의 위협도 엄청 커졌습니다. 전 세계를 이끌어가는 언론 여러분, 저는 이 자리에서 언론에 변하지 않는 가장 기본이 되는 가치를 강조하고 싶습니다. 먼저 언론은 정확한 팩트에 기반한 객관적인 정보를 전달해야 한다고 생각을 합니다. 또한 정의 실현을 위해 시대에 대한 건전한 비평을 해야 한다고 생각을 합니다. 언론이 정치, 자본, 권력에 대해 비판할 수 있어야 올바른 민주주의라고 생각을 합니다. 정의에 대한 각자의 성격이 다를 수 있겠지만은 언론이 존재할 수 있는 한은 균형 감각을 가져야 합니다. 마지막으로 그저 비판에 그칠 것이 아니라 대안과 비전을 제시하는 선도적 기능이 필요합니다. 이를 통해 사회 정의를 실현하고 각계각층 소통을 이루고 국가와 국가, 민족과 민족, 종교와 종교가 화해하고 번영을 함께 누리는 평화로운 지구촌 공동체를 만들어 이끌어 나가야 한다고 생각을 합니다. 저는 한때 일선 기자로서 80년대 군부 독재 정권에 맞서서 민주화 투쟁을 하는 과정에서 정부에 의해 해직되는 아픔도 겪었습니다. 시대의 가장 중요한 순간을 정확하게 기록한다는 것은 언론인으로서의 큰 자부심이자 책임이라고 생각을 합니다. 전 세계 언론인 여러분, 스마트 혁명으로 사람들이 신문을 떠나고 또 TV에서 모바일로 옮기고 여러 가지 변화가 있습니다마는 저널리즘의 사명은 어제나 오늘이나 내일이나 변함이 없다고 생각을 합니다. 위기는 기회입니다. 도전과 변화가 필요한 때입니다. 오늘 행사는 실시간 쌍방향 소통이 이루어지는 스마트 컨퍼런스라고 들었습니다. 글로벌 뉴스 포럼이 스마트 혁명의 파고 속에 미디어와 저널리즘이 나아갈 새로운 길을 모색하는 데 일조할 수 있기를 바랍니다. 대한민국의 ICT, 뉴미디어를 마음껏 체험하시고 아름다운 맛과 멋도 누리는 즐거운 시간이 되기를 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
Mr. Hwan-young, President and CEO of KBS, Mr. Lee Kyeong-Jae, Chairman of the Korean Communications Commission, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to begin by thanking KBS for hosting the first ABU Global News Forum in the beautiful city of Seoul. Audience expect accurate, timely, reliable, accountable, transparent and impartial information. That is the only way to win the trust of and serve the public. The ABU is bringing together broadcasters and provide a forum for exchanging ideas, skills, and knowledge to promote professional journalistic and program values to focus on commonalities, global peace, and understanding in a region as diverse as the Asia-Pacific. There are two schools of thoughts, those that find diversity a threat and those that embrace it. The ABU belongs to the second school of thought. Hence, the goal of such media gathering is to nurture a dialogue which is both preventive of conflict when possible and inclusive in nature. The path to coexistence is nothing but thinking together. And the path of thinking together is nothing but the path of having dialogue with each other. The meaning of dialogue travels far beyond that of participating in an opposing game. Participation in a dialogue is the same as playing together and not playing against each other. There are many communities, there are many commonalities among our 4 billion audiences. We can give more emphasis to these shared values. Undeniably, there are also significant differences. Ladies and gentlemen, it is possible for us, Asians, Africans, Arabs, Europeans, and Americans to live in harmony and peace. In spite of our differences, if only we respect our differences and rejoice in it. ABU family is a good example for this kind of unity in diversity. The key is to accept and respect other people with other forms of cultures, beliefs, and traditions. The beauty of a garden is the beauty of its so many colorful flowers. ABU's experience is that a strategy of inclusion, participation, and respect for the legitimate rights of all groups in the best formula to manage its diversity. The ABU is proud to partner with KBS to organize this inaugural Global News Forum in Seoul and to start the dialogue at the highest possible level and with the wider group. Media is both the vehicle and the product of dialogue. We see this as the core of our existence and the strength. The reason more than 255 broadcasting and industry organizations have chosen to become members. Any individual school of thought or civilization that accepts dialogue would be ultimately a winner. On behalf of the ABU, I thank you for your participation and contribution to this groundbreaking forum, being the first such in the region, and help us to shape the future of the news in this era of exponential change. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. And first of all, I think I should say congratulations to KBS for putting on such a impressive and important event. I think a conference which is smart in every sense of the word. So well done to everybody who's involved in that. To begin my remarks, sometimes I think it's the stories you don't put on air that tell you as much about the values of a news organisation as the ones you do. So some examples. Earlier this month, the major newswires reported that the new president of Iran had said that Israel was a sore that should be removed, an explosive inflammatory statement, only he didn't say that. My colleagues in the BBC's Persian language service knew it was important to check such a story before it could be broadcast, and when they listened back to the president's speech, they realised he'd been misquoted. They killed the story, and a few hours later, the news agencies corrected their version, and one of the Iranian news organisations praised the BBC for its thorough research, which is a lot of praise from a country which doesn't usually have much good to say about the BBC. Another example from Syria. Video footage, I won't play the video, of a man being buried alive by a group of soldiers. Proof of an atrocity by the forces of President Assad, or is it? The BBC runs a unit called the User Generated Content Hub, UGC. Their job is to verify stories and pictures which come in increasing numbers from the audience, as we've already been hearing about today, either sent directly to us and more likely posted on social media sites. My colleague who runs the hub was suspicious of the footage. He brought in another colleague, an Arabic speaker, who could identify the accents and uniforms of the soldiers in the video. They tweeted that they were looking at the footage, but they weren't convinced it was genuine. And we know that our colleagues at Storyful, who we're hearing from later today, were doing the same thing. And others joined in the discussion online. And eventually we concluded the footage was probably fake. The picture and sound quality was, if anything, too good. The pictures froze the moment the man was buried, so we don't know what actually happened afterwards. The voices didn't sound quite right. So as I say, sometimes what you don't broadcast tells you a lot about an organisation as much as what you do. I don't use these examples to say that the BBC is perfect. We've also made mistakes, and there are many out there trying to catch us out. But there are some important principles we follow, which I believe make a global news organisation like ours relevant in the Media 3.0 era. There is a demand and a need for what we do. That is, we seek to establish the truth behind events of significance and public interest. We do so independently of any state or commercial interest. We act only on behalf of the audience. Wherever we can, we seek to report firsthand. We go to the places where news is happening and believe in the power of eyewitness reporting. And in a world where anybody can record and publish their own news footage, we apply the same principles to their material as we do to our own. But we also recognise we are in partnership with the audience as well as serving them. And we value depth of knowledge and specialist expertise. Our leading journalists are renowned in their field, whether they broadcast in English or in any of the other 27 language services we run. I'd like to show you something from last week which I believe illustrates those principles. Some of this footage is disturbing. I'm only going to show a brief segment of it. It comes from Syria, where a BBC reporter found evidence that appeared to show how napalm or some other incendiary material had been used in an attack on a school. And this is a short extract from a report by a very brave and experienced correspondent, Ian Pannell. Play the first video.
The air is still thick with the smell of whatever liquid, whatever chemical it was that was dropped here. And it's hard to imagine and hard to describe the horrors of what the pilot did that day.
They arrived like the walking dead. We don't know for sure what was in the bomb, but the injuries and debris suggests something like napalm or thermite. There were no shrapnel injuries and little blood, just appalling burns.
Okay, so it's a very long report, and as I say, very disturbing images. And we thought very hard about publishing those pictures, but I think you would agree it was an important piece of journalism. And it was the product of a highly experienced team who've been on the front line in Syria for nearly 2 years now. And it takes a serious commitment and investment in journalism to be able to be on the scene when events like these happen, to be in the hospital when the burns victims start to arrive, and then to go back to the school to verify as much as they possibly could and gather footage filmed by people who were there. They didn't make claims they couldn't substantiate. They simply sought to establish the facts. And this was journalism at its best. Of course, it's not simply enough to put a story onto a TV news bulletin and hope everyone will find it. These days, our editorial values need to be applied across many different platforms. One of our biggest challenges is working as efficiently as possible across TV bulletins, TV channels, radio news, desktop websites, tablets, smartphones, feature phones, increasingly syndicated and, of course, shared on social media platforms. Multiple means of reaching the audience, but one set of values. And more than ever, our journalism must engage its audience, concentrating on brilliant storytelling presented in attractive and accessible ways, a serious purpose, but delivered with energy and humanity, and sometimes even wit. Now, of course, some people would argue absolutely the opposite of what I've just said, that the mainstream media is becoming irrelevant, that social media can do a better job of breaking and sharing news, that we are slow to respond and that we will be killed off by nimbler competitors taking advantage of technology to undermine organisations like the one I represent. Particularly as we enter the next stage of media development, which will become increasingly personalised and fragmented, where algorithms can choose stories better than humans and where everyone, as we've already heard, is a publisher. Is that what we mean by Media 3.0? Well, perhaps not. I believe there is plenty of evidence to suggest that there is a continuing role for us, perhaps now more than ever, in fact. If 3.0 is about putting more power in the hands of the audience, then our job is to help with that. We are a service to the audience, and we bring skills and knowledge which can help them find their way through the maze of different sources. The BBC core values I outlined are crucial to that. I would argue that this always-on world, this era of presence shock or filter failure or whatever phrase we use to describe the impact of living our lives surrounded by a non-stop flow of information, that in this world we need an organisation like the BBC, one which dedicates itself to serving the needs of people who want to understand the world around them, which recognises that audiences want to be in charge of their lives and will sometimes call upon a trusted guide to help them make sense of things, which places a value on clarity and explanation, and which has earned respect by demonstrating its independence and its openness, and which believes in working in partnership with others who share the same ethos and ensuring stories can be accessed and shared easily and quickly. The report I played you from Syria, that footage could have been uploaded to any social media site. It probably was. But with some verification, some context, some explanation, and yes, even some production, it made more sense. And because it came with our name attached to it, the audience could understand that all of those qualities had been put to the test before it was published. By now, I hope you'll have noticed something else about what I'm saying. All of my arguments start from the perspective of the audience. What is their need and how can we serve it? I think that may be what makes the 3.0 era different from the past. The power has been shifting into their hands for some years now, and today that transition has become profound. A news organisation which doesn't adapt to that faces a very difficult future. Let me tell you about some more of the ways in which the BBC is adapting. Earlier this year, we moved all our news operations in London into a new building right in the heart of the city. And this is our new newsroom. And in this building, there are close to 6,000 staff working on TV, radio and online, in English and in language services, serving audiences in Britain and around the world. Some of them work just on one platform, increasing numbers of them work across different platforms, and crucially, everything is shared. It's an open newsroom where a story is produced once and shared many times. We call it the world's newsroom, a concept designed to reinforce that it is there for the world, for the audience, and that it is a newsroom of the world with different nationalities and cultures working side by side. And this also extends to our global operations, big regional news bureau and smaller national teams in about 100 locations. And increasingly, there are journalists with skills in new areas, for example, graphics-based journalism or social media production. I just want to give another example now, if we could just run the next video. This was one of our most popular online stories of the past year, a new way of telling stories and engaging with audiences. It's something we did to mark the moment when the world's population reached 7 billion. And users could enter their date of birth into the calculator, and you're getting a secret here about me, and it would tell them where they came in the world population counter, but also give them a chance to find out more information about life expectancy and standards of living. And I think this is an illustration of something else we can offer in the 3.0 world, which is journalism which can be made more relevant and personalised. And by the way, it was also optimised for your device so that it worked on tablets as well as PCs. And with mobile traffic set to overtake PC traffic in our BBC websites, it's essential that we make sure our content works across all platforms. Okay, let's run another VT. A renewed focus on science, which is another area we're putting a lot of work into, which was recently named in a poll as the best science news website. And if we could just run the video again, please. Just wait for the next video to come.
To explain how this is going to work, let's use virtual reality. Now, in a normal nuclear reactor, you take an atom and then split it. This releases energy. It's the process known as fission. What they're going to do here is the opposite. They're going to be taking pairs of atoms and then forcing or fusing them together. This will release even more energy. It's what's called fusion, and it's the process that goes on inside the sun.
Okay, if we just dip this
Now,
down.
there's really only one way.
This is
to
part of a series
compete.
we're running called The Future of Fuel,
They'll create
which is
an
asking where we're going to get our energy
enormous
supplies in the
magnetic
future.
field.
And
It'll
incidentally, we
sit
filmed this
here
in France,
like
but I
a
gather a very
giant
similar project is
ring.
underway in South
And
Korea right
inside
now.
it,
But for me, this
fusion.
item is
All those
significant
atoms
because
being
it
forced
combines
together
high-quality, intelligent
right in
journalism
the
with
middle.
some fantastic
If
storytelling,
this works,
assisted
it'll be
by
a
clever
major
production,
step
which
to
is
showing
a very
that
good combination.
Can be a viable source of power.
Okay, let's just move on to
There's
the
a very
next
long
slide,
way
please.
to go.
Of course, the disruption in our media isn't just about audience behaviour or the impact of technology. It's also to the business model. A Media 3.0 needs to be paid for. And all around us, we can see evidence of news organisations struggling to maintain scale. And the BBC's solution to this is a mixed funding model, and we know that puts us in a privileged position, but one, as I have argued, which we return by providing a genuine public service. The largest portion of our income comes from a licence fee, which every household in Britain pays of around $200 a year. But that income has been frozen, so we're not immune to the cost cutting, which is so common in media organisations. But a growing proportion of our income comes from commercial activities outside the UK. So the World News TV channel and the International News website share the same public service spirit, but they're both commercially funded, bringing in income through advertising and distribution. And as it happens, the biggest reason we generate income is also the biggest reason we remain relevant. It's trust. Advertisers want to associate themselves with a brand which they see as respected and demonstrating quality. And of course, the last thing we should do is anything which undermines that trust. But ultimately, what will keep us going is maintaining the loyalty of our audience. The media academic Jeff Jarvis argues that journalism is not in the content business, we're in the relationship business. That is, our success depends upon us understanding the needs of our consumers. I think he may be oversimplifying things. Of course we're in the content business, and in fact, our ability to create original content is one of the key advantages of my organisation, the BBC. But he's right that we have to give more weight to the relationship we have with the audience, to understand the impact we can and should have. Which brings me back to where I started, the reason why we exist. And I believe this can be boiled down into one simple concept, which I think captures the spirit of 3.0, that of control, putting the audience in control. Some of that is about technology, about the audience's ability to choose where and when, and crucially how to consume media. We need to make that as easy for them as possible. It's about allowing them to personalise content, to make it simple to find, and to give people the means to share it or download it. And of course, places where they can debate and discuss what we're producing. But all of that is about giving them control over what they do. I believe we need to consider this in the context of what they know, giving them a greater feeling of control over their lives because they understand the world around them, giving them a trusted source of information which filters out the noise and brings clarity and explanation, and bringing freedom of information to places where media is restricted or undeveloped, because information is power, putting control back into the hands of the audience, developing ideas and themes or revealing truths, sharing that with a mass audience. And by now, some of you might have spotted an irony in what I'm saying, because my title is Controller of English at the BBC, but I'm not the controller, because you are and they are. Thank you very much.
Session 1, Global Journalism in the Media 3.0 Era. The reach of international journalism has never been wider. The pace of publishing has never been faster. The one-way media paradigm of the past has changed forever. Journalists in this environment have the need for speed. Clicks, upvotes, likes, links, page views, going viral. Interactivity. Ordinary people are producers of breathtaking and heartbreaking stories, and journalists can share them with the world. But what about the cornerstones of journalism? The obligation to the truth, loyalty to the public interest, verification of the facts. Critics are worried. Worried that online rumors and falsehoods can go viral, about harming the proud history of journalism. How do we avoid this? Better yet, how do Media 3.0 tools contribute to excellence in global reporting? Session 1: Global Journalism in the Media 3.0 Era.
I want to be a politician in future, and I want to serve this nation because this country needs good leaders, honest leaders.
Everyone is wondering how on earth this massive ship came so close to this treacherous shore.
The bottom line is that these miners want more money. They're earning between $300 and $600 a month.
One of the gunmen came to the front. He asked the driver to stop the vehicle. The other one, there were two, came to the back and jumped on board where Malala Yousafzai was sitting right there.
The crowd has gone absolutely wild now. The monitors have arrived, even carrying them on their shoulders here. They're treating the monitors as if they are gods. They've been sent here to save them.
Why is it, sir, that African leaders seem to have such a hard time stepping down?
I have been in leadership for those years you have mentioned on the basis of being voted by the public.
The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old.
This small hall was once filled with laughter and celebrations of marriages. Now it echoes with tragedy.
We just walked in and we've just been swamped, bombarded by these people's tragic stories here.
This soup kitchen in Athens, the growing ranks of Greece's new poor. Former office workers, shopkeepers, pensioners, laid low by their country's economic despair.
This food is good food.
Yep.
Fresh food, cooking, and give help to a lot of poor people, including me.
With the state police themselves struggling to hold the peace in the face of an almost daily onslaught by militants, attacks are spreading across Nigeria's Muslim-majority north, and many Christians here feel few safe places remain.
There's no doubt that Lance Armstrong's world continues to crumble around him. 7 sponsors in total have now dropped him in the last 24 hours.
Lance Armstrong faces a lifetime ban and may be stripped of his 7 Tour de France titles.
He is a living legend, and that is official. Usain Bolt scorching his way into the record books with a back-to-back Olympic double.
I'm so not good at that.
The Russian presidential campaign took an intriguing turn today.
France votes in the first stage of presidential elections on Sunday.
Welcome to the special coverage of Election Day.
His margin of victory was narrower than in 2008.
Because we are not as divided as our politics suggests. We are greater than the sum of our individual ambitions, and we remain more than a collection of red states and blue states.
Good morning, and it's great to be in Seoul. It's great to be at this conference. Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much to KBS for laying on such a very impressive conference and you know, brilliant set here as well. I wanted to open with a glimpse of CNN to underline that in a very changing world, there are some core values which stay the same among the diversity of our storytelling. There's on-the-ground reporting done with expertise and people who live and work in the region. And we're trying to tell human stories, because I think through human stories it's the best way to explain what's happening to the rest of the world. And that was a showreel that we presented to the Royal Television Society in London, which won us the very prestigious RTS News Channel of the Year award this year. So we were very proud in a changing world that we get the recognition as old media from our industry peers. Absolutely no doubt that what we've seen in the last 10 years has been nothing short of a revolution, and anyone who works in newsrooms will realize that. All of these products and services that have come on the market have led to wholesale reorganizations within newsrooms as we look to respond. And who knows, if I was here in a year's time, I'd probably add the Samsung watch, smartwatch to that list as well. And look how Twitter, for example, as one platform, has revolutionized breaking news. This was a tweet from a software engineer working in Pakistan who didn't realize that what he was witnessing was the start of the raid to kill Osama bin Laden. Likewise, in 2009, January 2009, within seconds of this amazing story, within seconds, we had pictures and photographs beamed around the world. Same with the tragic Asiana crash earlier on this year. And also with the Boston bombing, for example, in April of this year. This was the first tweet that was published around the Boston bombing. But if you have a look, and if you can read that, as the debate around social media expands around breaking news, a lot of our audience want to come back to journalists to tell them whether it's true or not and whether it matters or not. So if you see the one that's circled, it says, home with D looking at CNN now, and that's typical of how people in a breaking news situation will get a tip-off from social media and then look to paid, experienced journalists, professional journalism, to explain the truth to them. And to underline some of what Richard was saying, I think the values across a lot of my colleagues in professional journalism remain true. This is Arwa Damon, who has done a lot of our frontline reporting in the Middle East. Arwa lives in the Middle East, is a fluent Arabic speaker, and it's this on-the-ground presence that we have and the expertise that we have to unlock the stories. You saw on the tape right at the beginning, we interviewed Malala before she was shot, and that dedication to a story which at the time may not have been top of anybody's news agenda and may not have been worth considering spending money on by some producers, was the difference between a great scoop and being able to tell that story in a way that others couldn't. But we move with the times, and we don't stand still. CNN was founded in 1980 by Ted Turner, and it made its name in the early days as a breaking news brand. Mainstream news organizations don't own breaking news anymore. But what we do have is an expectation that when we cover the stories, we will be true and we'll be accurate and we will be unbiased. Because there's no tolerance from our audience anymore for getting it wrong. That's a value that they put on us above anything else. What I wanted to show in this slide was CNN report, which was a great example of CNN embracing social media. I think what we had over the past few years, and I've experienced this in news conversations with colleagues both within and without CNN, is wondering whether new media services and platforms are a friend or a foe to traditional news. And I believe that news organizations that embrace them, that see the opportunity of partnership and understanding how audiences and our news audiences are having discourse, will gain the benefits. Those that repel it and push it away will be left behind. CNN iReport was founded in 2007, and it was our own user-generated social media platform. So for the first time, we gave an area of CNN for anybody to post whatever they wanted to. It could be a skateboarding dog, or it could be political opinion, or a range of things between that. And we posted it unmoderated on CNN, which, as you can imagine at the time, gave some people some sleepless nights thinking about what might follow. CNN iReport over the last 5 or 6 years has been an unqualified success, not only for a range of diverse stories around breaking news stories. This is an example of what we call an open story around the tsunami and earthquake in Japan, where we were able to display 200 stories on one page from our audience, but also to have conversations with our audience and to emphasize that news these days is very much a two-way experience. We've stopped just pushing out news and not listening to our audience. It has to be a two-way experience. iReport now has more than 1 million registered users, and we've had iReports from every country in the world. So finally, just by way of summary and to set up the debate that will follow, and in the spirit of list journalism, which is very popular these days. So I love this quote from my colleague Lila King, who's in charge of social media strategy at CNN. Yes, we have a social media strategy department. Didn't have one of those 10 years ago. Be comfortable with chaos. So here's 4 ways that CNN has changed in a 3.0 environment. Breaking news is great for tip-offs, but as we've discussed, our job then is to look at authenticity and meaning. It gives us a real-time conversation with our audience, and done properly and done intelligently and done with a human voice, we're able to turn passive audience into loyal fans. iReport is a great example of that, being used not only in breaking news and hard news scenarios, but to play into people's passions and to tap into conversations which they're going to have with us or without us, and being part of those conversations. And finally, as a distribution tool, for example, CNN BRK is the most popular news Twitter service with nearly 13 million subscribers at the moment. I think we may have just passed 13 million in the past day. So hopefully that sets up some of the themes that we're going to be discussing with our colleagues shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this great event. I'm really honored. First time for me in Seoul, and I'm already so impressed. Al Jazeera English is part of Al Jazeera Network, one of the world's leading media corporations, encompassing news, documentary, and sport channels. Almost 20 channels so far, and it is growing. We are currently broadcasting to more than 260 million households in over 130 countries. And we are growing. 2 weeks ago, we have launched Al Jazeera America, which beams into 50 million US homes, while we are also in the process of launching Al Jazeera Turk and Al Jazeera UK very soon. As an international news channel with over 60 bureaus around the world that span 6 different continents, Al Jazeera is committed to its basic and core news values. Al Jazeera, what makes Al Jazeera different from other channels is we do challenge the traditional center powers in many countries. That's what made us hitting 2.7 million viewers in Nigeria, in a country in Central Africa like Nigeria, way ahead of our competition, and comes second behind the local channels. The integration between the TV industry and the social media is great, and with the evolving era, we are looking forward to more of incorporating the social media into our daily news process. The web team and the new media team are located in the same area where the newsroom, the TV newsroom is. As I said, there are a lot of examples where Al Jazeera English was, because of the evolving and development of the new technology, the social media integration was almost viral across the world. 13.4 million views on YouTube.com of the obituary of al-Qaddafi when he was announced dead during the war in Libya. And in 2012, a total of 1 billion minutes of Al Jazeera English was watched live on the internet. That's equivalent to one person watching our content for over 2,000 years. So in an ever-evolving era of news and media, Al Jazeera has always looked further ahead than just using the traditional ways of news gathering, news sourcing, and reporting. As a head of output for the channel, it is my responsibility to ensure our content, coverage, and news is accurate, balanced, and objective. We are evolving with the times, and even though my background is very much TV journalism, I do believe that an integrated newsroom where TV and web along with multimedia is essential with all components stand by side. However, with the rise of the social media, citizen journalism, and a 24-hour media cycle reporting from war zones, verifying user-generated content, and getting to the story first, it's becoming very difficult for the traditional news organization to carry on. Having said that, it doesn't mean that there's a competition between the social media, new media tools, and the traditional TV journalism. I see it as more of a complementary. If I had to rewrite my PhD that I did with the title of the impact of the visuals on the acquisition of knowledge in news, this was like almost 12 years ago, I would have definitely reconsidered the impact of the social media, the impact of the new media tools. The basic is news gathering. And news gathering with the new media tools has changed a lot, has evolved a lot with new technology like AVI-West and GSM-based kind of new media tools. Verification comes at the core of our daily job. As my colleague just said, it's so easy to get a tweet. I was in the newsroom in the middle of an editorial meeting when the news editor rushed into the room saying, "Sir, David Frost is dead, it's been tweeted." David Frost has been working with Al Jazeera English for the last 6 years. So we first knew about the death of David Frost on a Twitter. But we didn't go with the news as it happened. The first thing was, please contact one of his family members and let's do something about David Frost. Verification is at the core of our daily job. It's what differentiates a social media outlet and a proper TV news channel. We do use, as I said, lots of new products, smartphones, applications, tablet applications, live streams, YouTube.com, and Google Plus TV, and it's growing and growing in this new era. The stream is one of the examples of the integration between the social media, the new media, and the TV news programming. The stream debates the hot story of the day with the online community that shows. The show is live from Washington for a half hour and is followed by a half hour by online post show. It is not a show simply about the hottest viral videos, squares, skateboarding. It is more about connecting with the unique, less covered online communities around the world and share their stories and viewpoint on the news of the day. A key part of the stream's mission is to help the viewers discover the newest online tools and advise and develop and share their information through these fast-changing networks. Social networking now offers new possibilities to expand Al Jazeera. English mission is to give a voice to the voiceless, and the social media is helping us to do that in this new era. The stream uses interaction with online guests, videos, tweets, and Facebook updates like a lot of other interactive programs. And it's the trend that Al Jazeera English and the GNF network in general is pushing forward to, with more programming based on interaction and integration with social media. During the Arab Spring, we created a kind of video portal called Engage. We used to receive 70,000 videos a day, and it wasn't an easy job to go through these 70,000 videos a day and filter it down and decide which one can go on our channel. As I said, it's an evolving era. It's a fast-growing business that it dictates a lot of changes, a lot of the new directions into the industry of the television journalism, in side by side with the evolvement of the new media tools and with the social media. In the next decade, or probably the next few years, Al Jazeera will embrace new challenges of reporting, along with new opportunities. Hopefully, we'll have a dozen more channels or outlets. I would say platforms are changing alongside with the evolvement of the new media, and we are looking forward to new methods, new platforms. But our main news values will remain as is: balanced, accurate, and objective. This is a very short, I hope it's not that boring speech, but I will let you know. I will leave you to watch how we are currently doing our job with the video.
Al Jazeera, leading the information age. The network began as a pan-Arab news channel in 1996, using a single studio and videotape as the only source of content. In 1999, it became a 24-hour news network. By 2006, its English channel launched with more than 60 bureaus around the world.
It's November the 15th, day one of a new era in television news.
In an undersea HD fiber connecting 4 news centers in Doha, London, Kuala Lumpur, and Washington, D.C. When Al Jazeera Balkans went to air in 2011, field teams were using innovative technologies to record, feed, and produce lives.
This is the first ever news hour from Al Jazeera America. Welcome, everyone.
And as Al Jazeera America joins, the network is employing a multimedia approach across all channels. Historical perspective.
What Al Jazeera is doing is vicious, inaccurate, and inexcusable.
The audience has grown, and it can be an important means of communication in the world. And I'm delighted you're doing what you're doing.
Like it or hate it, it is really effective. And in fact, viewership of Al Jazeera is going up in the United States because it's real news.
Al Jazeera English. The channel aims to focus the human side of the story by combining politics, technology, and media analysis through a mixture of traditional journalism and new outreach mediums.
Those are getting seemingly more harsh.
The network challenged a popular narrative in Afghanistan and Iraq, where it was subject to attacks, criticism, and distrust by government and corporations alike. Multiple news gathering teams in every region across the world.
Because we're running out of time, we're going to have to cut this short.
Okay, I was told that I will have to cut it short. Just one last thing, we talk about the 3.0 media era, new media, new technology we're very much relying on, but sometimes technology fails us. Every now and then we are subject to hacking, subject to system failures, and all we can do is to be prepared as journalists to deal with any situation again, maintaining our very core values of the news, as we have just mentioned, integrity, credibility, and power of the band that sets us ahead of other channels. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hani.
Good morning. My name is Min Kyung-wook and I'm the main anchor of KBS 9 o'clock news. And I want to start this presentation by thanking Dr. Hwan-young of the KBS Broadcast Research Institute for conducting the fascinating research I'm about to share with you. I've seen incredible changes in the media environment here in Korea since I became reporter in 1991. South Korea has one of the fastest average internet speeds in the world at 44.8 megabytes per second and 82.7% internet penetration rate and a smartphone penetration rate of 73%. Dr. Kang's thorough research into Korea's media environment can be very instructive to a global audience that is trying to understand the Media 3.0 era. Before we dive into the details, let's quickly go over the purpose and methods of Dr. Kang's research seen here. The purpose of this research was to measure changes in usage of news in the Media 3.0 era and understand new methods of producing news and guaranteeing proper journalism values. Let's start with some good news. KBS is #1 in TV news in Korea. I'm so proud of it. Top reason cited was reliability, followed by convenience of broadcasting schedule. In other good news, we found that 60% still count on terrestrial TV news as their primary source of news. So far, so good. But we lose about 20% when we asked about the most popular news media in the future. Meanwhile, a huge majority said that their future news usage would be greater or the same as before. So, where are they going? I think we all know pretty well where they are going. Almost 90% of respondents said that they find their news on the web. The most often visited news sites in Korea, is it the KBS homepage? Not even close. News portal sites like Korea's Neighbor, shown here, dominate the internet in Korea. We are not able to rely on brand loyalty of our television broadcasts on the web. Interestingly, we see some similarity across Northeast Asian cultures in countries like China and Japan. China's Baidu and Japan's Yahoo News look rather similar to Korea's Neighbor, whereas my American friends tell me they often go straight to the New York Times or CNN homepage, for example. 2/3 of online news consumers go to portal sites first for their information. Newspaper sites and broadcaster sites fall far behind. People love interacting with the news in Korea. Over 50% have at least posted a comment on a news item on the internet, while over 1/3 have shared news stories with a friend. The most popular SNS sites for checking out the news in Korea are seen here, with Facebook and Twitter taking the largest slice. More than 70% of respondents said that they have talked about news content with their friends via SNS. And the most popular topics? No wonder, politics. And people say kids these days aren't interested. But look at these numbers. #1 is politics, and #2 is disasters or accidents. So the research shows that people in Korea are hungry for news online. They love sharing it with their friends. And they are discussing topics that are valuable to civil society, like politics, disasters, even economics and culture. But they are not necessarily following KBS, the most trusted name in TV news. We have to go to them. And here are some of the ways we are rising to the challenge. We have to find a way to earn back the loyalty of our television viewers in an online space. KBS News Online cannot be a dumping ground for broadcast scripts. It must be an entirely new platform, news platform, adding a new dimension to news coverage. We are free to use the various tools of Media 3.0 to improve our efficiency in time and costs. News reporters are using SNS like Twitter, Facebook, and Korea's Kakao Talk to produce real-time updates and connect with the audience. We are building rapport with the people we serve. SNS is used in news production as a preparation stage for discovering news items, understanding news trends, and even for citizen reporting. But this mass production of information means our job is just a little bit harder. We can't turn our backs on our journalistic background. We have to balance speed with depth and accuracy. We should abide by reliable news norms and rules and make effort to maintain balance in our reporting. As a final word, I would just like to say that the journalists have to capture the interest of young generation. The most important thing that we can do is jump right into using new communications technologies. Many of you have new smart devices with you today, so use it. Don't be afraid to experience technological evolution. Download the latest applications. Learn what other journalists are doing and try to do it better. I often think about a trip I took to the headquarters of NPR, National Public Radio in Washington, D.C. I was surprised when I learned that NPR had an award for Best Photo and Best Video for its journalists. Best Photo and Best Video for a radio station. It's because NPR has embraced online journalism and the use of photos and videos on the web. All of us should be thinking about ways to transform our news presentation in preparation for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hwan-young.
Thank you, KBS and ABU, for organizing such an important event. Thank you to my panelists, many of whom have YouTube channels, and to all of you for helping shape how news is being reported, delivered, and consumed.
Great to hang out with you today.
Looking forward to it.
And YouTube is less than 10 years old. For the past year, I've led YouTube's news partnerships. During this time, audiences have watched Hurricane Sandy and the Boston bombing, the election of President Park, the re-election of President Obama, elections in France, Japan, Brazil, Kenya, and next up, Australia. We've seen the birth of a prince and the selection of a pope live-streamed on YouTube. We've watched dramatic scenes from the streets of Syria, Egypt, and Turkey. And we've watched vigils for Nelson Mandela. We're all here because news is transforming. Many of us witnessed the seismic shifts when cable television and the internet provided greater choice and access to news. I was at Turner Broadcasting during the emergence of CNN and at a search engine called Excite, which existed before Google, which helped us find pages of news from all over the world. We no longer needed to wait for evening television news. Innovation continues as social media, online video, and mobile are changing news even more. In a month, when millions of people came to YouTube to witness what was happening in Egypt, Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post, as was referred to earlier, joining Warren Buffett as a newspaper owner. In a world where many learn news on Facebook, Line, BuzzFeed, Google News, or via Twitter, audiences are still going to Yahoo, KBS, Star, the BBC, and CNN, and many others. While news access via tablets has doubled in markets, 33% of younger audiences are still getting their news from television, according to Reuters. An AP study recently showed that while 16 to 24-year-olds are not big consumers of news on a daily basis, in the UK, video is driving greater news engagement for this group than ever. And in the US, while TV news ratings are slipping, it's amazing and intriguing to watch our friends at Al Jazeera launching Al Jazeera America. Yes, things are changing, and we at YouTube are doing our part. 1 billion people come to YouTube on a monthly basis. Millions upload videos, and thousands of partners are building channels. It's these consumers and these partners who are making YouTube a global destination for news and information and a lot more. With over an hour of video uploaded every second on YouTube, we recognize journalism is more important than ever. 1/3 of news content watched on YouTube comes from citizen journalists. YouTube may give everyone a voice, but you, all of us, are the ones that provide the analysis, curation, verification, and interpretation to help understand what's happening. Our channels are attracting a generation of viewers that has grown up watching what they want, when they want, and on whatever device they want. And, as we've heard a lot today, they love to share. Our investment in the redesign around channels and the curators behind them has our audiences watching 6 billion hours a month of programming on YouTube, which is up 50% from last year. So when this guy jumped out of space, it used up 8% of the total internet that day. From the latest breakout hit to the Olympics, YouTube has helped shape what matters in content and culture, and that clearly applies to news. Some of you may know him. He's Jon Stewart in the United States. He reaches 2% of American households on a daily basis. Some of you may know him. This is the Jon Stewart of the Middle East, Bassem Youssef. Propelled by his popularity on YouTube, 35% of Egyptians watch his show on a daily basis. Video is connecting the world. Every day on YouTube, 7,000 hours of news-related videos are uploaded. Through these videos, people have immediate, unfiltered information about what's happening. During Hurricane Sandy, an eyewitness caught the explosion of a substation here, and it was watched 4 million times in 24 hours. During the Boston bombing, videos were viewed more than 70 million times in the days surrounding this event. Information now has much wider reach. Via our live capabilities, ABC News streamed the presidential debate to over 200 countries on their channel. And the Weather Channel reached a global audience during the Sandy hurricane, live streaming their TV feed on their YouTube channel for a consecutive 70 hours. And in Syria, anonymous reporters have risked and lost their lives. to provide coverage never before witnessed on the global stage. During the height of the Arab Spring, 100,000 videos were uploaded from Egypt, even though the government had shut down the internet. 70% of YouTube's viewers are from outside the United States. Those that use it the most on a per capita internet basis per user, Saudi Arabia is the #1 user of internet per user in their country. Now that anyone can link, embed, tweet, upload, and comment, audiences are flooded with often recycled news and wrong information. We know we're not simplifying reporting. We're changing it. As the flow of information grows much on our platform, and we need you to provide the analysis, context, and verification. We're working hard to help surface the news. We've organized around channels so people can follow names they trust, like the Wall Street Journal, The Guardian, India TV, CNN, KBS, BBC, and Televisa, and it's contributed to this big growth. But there are new names in news that are making an impact with high-quality, non-traditional takes on current news. SourceFed, Euronews, Russia Today, Storyful have built big audiences and play important roles. Several of our partners have over 1 billion views on their channels. Channels such as ITN's Truthloader, Vice, CIR, and the Young Turks provide that audiences like authenticity, consistency, interactivity. They want to be inspired, and most importantly, they want to be a part of the conversation. They're willing to stick around, demonstrating that YouTube is more than short-form video, but an important voice in the future of news. And if they like it, as we've heard a lot today, they will share it over and over, helping you to build your audiences more and more. We're proud to have built a platform where the world shares its news and people from all over the world are watching. Where known and trusted news providers continue to report and deliver the news while new voices emerge. YouTube has become a part of how people learn, understand, report, and share the news. We're incredibly excited about the road ahead, and we're proud of the role we're playing to help make the world a better and a safer place. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jed. You should be proud. Everybody goes to YouTube.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank KBS for this wonderful occasion. It's a fantastic occasion, and it's a privilege to meet a lot of the news organizations that Twitter respects and works closely with. So thank you very much. I think I came last because we're running out of time, and Twitter is known for keeping things very short, 140 letters. So I'll try to keep that promise for everyone. Many of us have seen this video, and I won't go into the sort of details of it, but I think we know about it. Let me just skip it quite quickly, because this video was shared by Boston Police Department, and it came out real time. Many of us saw the number plate, and then when the perpetrators were captured, the last tweet was retweeted 75,000 times, probably reaching 100 times that audience immediately. And it's the kind of news-breaking cycle that we're observing, where not only individuals, but also institutions like the police are tweeting out information in real time. And we're working very closely with news organizations to spread that. So I want to just go into some of the details of how we work with news organizations to spread the word. We define ourselves as a social broadcast network. That's what we are. And we're primarily good at two things. Real-time broadcasting. That's really the specialness of Twitter. Things happening every second, which ties us very closely with news. And also wider scattering. We're where the buzz breaks. And so if the news is breaking, we'd like to help you expand that reach exponentially around the world. Just a couple of ways we work with news, and I think all these are things that all of you do. We'd like to make sure that we help empower you to do it even more effectively. one of the first things we've worked with most news organizations around is breaking news as a breaking news vehicle. And when the Boston bombing happened, we were really one of the platforms, not with the police only, but with the news organizations to spread it. Also with happy news, like Prince William and Kate giving a birth. That's the kind of news that we see on Twitter, where the users of Twitter will really engage with what's happening at that moment. There was also a mention of Twitter being an information source, and there was already a mention of David Yoon's tweet after the Ariana flight landed in San Francisco that was tweeted out and shared immediately. Also, organizations like the Clarence House use Twitter to announce news first. We're observing more and more that primary sources like politicians, entertainment stars, use Twitter to break their news in their cycle. And we want to work with news organizations to make sure that that reaches the news organizations immediately as well, and then helps expand that news to the global audience. Also, we're observing that disasters, there was a mention of a very interesting, I think, KBS study talking about news and disasters being some of the things that people look for immediately. I found when I was in Japan with the Tohoku earthquake that Twitter became a very, very important source when the electricity was down and TV was not working and even mobile phones were down. But we're also seeing in Germany, we're in Seoul, we just signed a very important agreement with the Seoul city to try to make sure that whenever there's a disaster, whether it be a flood or any other disaster, that we work very closely to make sure that that information gets out to the public and that we can spread that with the news organizations. So that was the sort of Seoul Lifeline account that is now created. Hopefully will be of use during the summer season with typhoons that might be happening in this region. You'll also notice that we have ways of reaching out widely. The Twitter card is a way to just have enough information for the reader to be interested in the story, but then to go to your sites to get more of the details. So we can be a routing mechanism to get traffic into the broadcasters, the web pages. Also, the retweeting mechanism is a way we spread your news to the audience of the followers of people who are watching that tweet. The other way we try to be helpful is through creating big data. And I think that's another dimension that is quite new. We talked about individual news sources, but the collective data is news itself. And this is an example of an Olympic star and how much conversation is happening about that star, that volume itself, how that's trending, what the sentiment is within that total big data is in itself, I think, a new dimension of data news that we're observing today. Also, we have a range of support tools. Through algorithm, we can figure out the kinds of headlines that are closely tied to your story, so they get introduced below the tweet. Also, many news organizations are using sharing buttons, also embedding tweets into the news sites so that we can help expand the news that you're creating. So, in summary, I mentioned that our strength is really around real-time and wider scattering, but there are three things that we really want to make sure that we help and support the news organizations do better. One is the breaking news vehicle aspect. The second is information source, not only with the individual, but also with institutions that are being the primary sources that are now using Twitter. And lastly, the big data information source that's out there. And then finally, thirdly, helping create a wider reach. So here are some of the resources where some of the best practices around the world are shared, and I'd love to share more with you in the session and also afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. You know, actually, we are right now currently witnessing the power of Twitter. I hear from the organizers that we're getting a lot of questions and comments coming in right now, real time. Just for about 10 minutes, we'd like to talk a little bit among ourselves, the panels. I'm sure you were impressed and you found new information from others that gave presentations. So if you have any questions, please ask each other. But I'd like to start asking this. When I posted the fact that we're going to have this forum on my Facebook, I had a lot of friends asking me, what is Media 3.0? Any one of you? I know, Richard, you told us about what you think of Media 3.0 is. Any of our panels? You can press that.
I believe it's all about the audience and the interaction with the audience, and what I was saying, that news just isn't pushing news one way. It's at least a two-way, if not a 100-way conversation at any given time in real time.
Yes, Hani?
I was just making a joke. I said it's 1 point after 2.0. I'm not sure what 3.0 stands for. All I can get is we are witnessing a new era of the media interaction, integration between social media, new technology, and the traditional media tools.
Mr. Min, you have any comments on what you think of a Media 3.0 is?
We have many, new technologies, integrated to enhance the effect of our news, and that's what we call news trend, new technology, new media, and we are trying to embrace it, and that's two-way channel, two-way communication. Before we had our news on air, and people were supposed to listen or watch it, without anything they can do actively. But the things are changing. That's what we call Media 3.0.
Twitter and YouTube. Jed and James, do you guys see traditional media as friend or foe?
Can I
Sure.
pick up on the 3.0 one thing?
Sure.
I think it also is a changing evolutionary time where the gatekeeper concept is no longer the same. So both in terms of how we watch and where we watch and who we get to watch from is no longer about a small number of gatekeepers. Nor is it that the sources, and again, we've talked a lot today about those sources have to be the relevant and right sources, but it's no longer that the sources are a small number of sources. We have really changed that in what 3.0 is defined by. Part two to your question of how do we see larger media organizations, they're absolutely friend, I think, for certainly both of us. I wouldn't say it on behalf of Twitter, but I can't imagine it's not the same. We are a platform that looks to bring content and programming out to the world from all the sources that are available, whether it's a person in the streets of Cairo or whether it's a major news organization with a reporter who's on the streets. And that's really what we're doing, which is providing that platform that gives greater reach and greater access than it ever was done before.
Did you have comments?
Yep. Just an additional comment about 3.0. In addition to the conversations that are going on, I think the one thing that we didn't really discuss that much in detail today is about the data aspect and the big data aspect. And I think that's a dimension where we can measure the conversation, we can analyze the conversation. The volume of tweets itself is creating a way we can talk about what's going on in the world right now and get a pulse on the planet. And so I think that's a dimension of 3.0 that we're very interested in. And to your question about foe or friends, definitely a partner. And I think we want to really help amplify what the news organizations are doing and help bring the tools. So we're really interested in learning what you need so that we can help empower that through the tools that we have.
Richard, do you have any comments from the presentations or questions that you want to ask?
No, I think just to add to what we've heard, I mean, obviously these new outlets are friends of ours. We have to work with them. We have to have a relationship with them. And I think maybe my summary of what 3.0 would mean, I said it was about control in my speech. I think in a way we can think about it as being sort of beyond the platform. Actually, the platform doesn't really matter. For me, what matters is that the audience is able to get the sort of information and content that that they need to have, and that's the challenge for us, is to provide that regardless of the platform.
Anyone else want to ask questions to each other? If not, we're going to go straight to the questions from Twitter. Yeah? Okay. Do we have questions ready from... Yes. Is that the questions? Let me see. Oh, here it is. How can you verify information on social media and still be the first? Who wants to answer that? We have a question for Nick Ren. What is your reaction when the moderator says, we know that we all go to Twitter when breaking news happens?
Yeah, I can take that one. Yeah, that's true. I go to Twitter as well. You know, we have a tweet deck up in our newsroom. We're very much engaged with Twitter, and we love Twitter, and we love our CNNBRK account and all the other good stuff on it. I would say, you know, just to reiterate the point, I'll reiterate it with an example. So, you know, it's very rare that mainstream new media is first with breaking news. We do still get scoops, and we still do quality journalism and investigative journalism, which you know, other people don't have. So there are times where we make a real impact with breaking news still. But when events, disasters happen, it's very hard for us to be there along with millions of people with smartphones. So I think it, you know, clearly, you know, we're not there with the first pictures in the same way that social media is. But let me give you a quick example. When Michael Jackson died, which was, I think, you know, an amazing social media story, our newsroom was, you know, in a frenzy trying to verify the reports that were coming in from various sources that he was dead. And we didn't trust the sources. So we were actually one of the last news organizations to actually say that Michael Jackson had died. And there was immense pressure on us to match and to go with the story, and we held off and we held off and we held off until we were absolutely 100% certain that he was true. And we did that when we saw the death certificate. And in fact, when we saw the death certificate, we realized that some news media had announced his death 1.5 hours before he actually died. And our audience thanked us for that. You know, but we got quotes like saying, you know, when CNN announced it, I knew it was really true. And that, to me, is a good example of staying true to your journalistic principles and going with what you know when you know it. You know, we want to be first, but speed follows accuracy.
I also remember that I went to Twitter when the Asiana Airlines crashed, because I had to find somebody who was actually there at the airport, and that's how I found a witness to be on air on ABC News. Next question. How do we tackle diminishing attention spans brought about by the increased... I think we know what he's trying to say. How do we tackle diminishing attention spans brought about by the increased number of social networks?
I'll start there.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is about understanding your audiences. I think we can all look back in history and recognize that things around us from technology and media have changed the human behavior that we all live. I'm not a human behaviorist, but I'm sure others would say that we have to understand our audiences. So when we think about, I think there was a question also combined that someone asked me, which was how can producers change as they think about the news? I think you have to understand your audience. At YouTube, we think about one of our primary audiences is this Generation C, this millennial audience. We call them the Generation C because they're always on, they're always connected. I may take on Nick a little bit to say that while I understand the importance of verification and authenticity and being right is critical, the truth is that breaking news, I don't know that that's really the important issue anymore. I think it is the authenticity, it's the context. And so while everybody scrambles in a world where we used to live, where I'm first to break news, I don't know that that matters anymore, because there are so many sources, whether it's your friends, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, or whether it's somebody posting something on YouTube. I think this really is, it's both understanding what your audience wants, they want to know what's happening, and they want to know as soon as they possibly can, but then they want to be able to move as quickly as they can to the context and what matters for them. And so I think in ways that we think about producers on YouTube, that is understanding that audience and producing for that audience, and I don't think you have to compromise the values that matter as you do it.
Yes, Richard.
I'm not sure that I would necessarily accept that attention spans are diminishing. I mean, I think there's, that's sometimes the case, but actually overall media consumption is increasing, and I think there may be a risk that sometimes we, as media producers, say the problem is attention spans are diminishing. Well, actually, the problem is that we haven't produced the right material, or we haven't produced it in the right way. And I think that's one of the challenges we have to face. So I think what one of the panelists said earlier, just kind of putting broadcast content onto a website doesn't mean you're doing online video well. It's not the same thing. You have to produce content which is right for the medium that it's being used on, and I think that's an opportunity. That's something that we recognise. It's also a challenge because at the same time as recognising that, we're also trying to produce news as efficiently as possible with the minimum number of hands, minimum number of people involved in the process to make it work as effectively across all of these platforms. And these things are actually kind of directly in contradiction with each other sometimes.
I believe that with the right storytelling, there is an appetite still for long-form journalism. We did a piece about a 50-year-old murder case a couple of weeks ago on our website, and there were thousands of words. It was a very, very long piece of narrative, and we found that the average dwell time on that piece of content, that one story, was huge. Some people were staying on it for up to 50 minutes because embedded in it was video and data and galleries. So I think if you get it right, that there is an appetite for depth and context.
It's quite long, 15 minutes.
It was a long piece, but people stayed with it because it was great narrative.
Actually, yesterday, last night, all of us had dinner together, and we were talking about this surprising fact that more younger people watch news. I thought it was the opposite, right? And we were talking about it yesterday. Was it Richard or was it Jed that you did a survey and you realized that younger?
No, we didn't. The Associated Press did a survey that included looking at in the UK, and I think it's just a testament also to this device right here. We've seen a doubling of the use of this device for watching things on YouTube. I think we all recognize that, and I think it's back to this connected generation. And again, it's not just an age, but it's also a lot of people around the world. It gives you the ability to watch whatever it is that's important, or to read whatever it's important in a very quick way. And I think that's one of the contributors that I would say is why younger people are more connected via online to news.
And also, Nick, you said CNN did a survey and you realized that more younger people watch TV news than before?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think that the death of broadcast television has been proclaimed in some quarters. I don't go along with that. I think what happens is that new media comes along and challenges existing media before. So, newspapers were not killed off by radio. Radio was not killed off by television. Television was not killed off by the internet. They just change. And I think people want different media at different times on, different stages. So our challenge is to follow the audience.
We'll take questions from here on the floor. Does anybody have questions to the panels? Yes, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Hwan-young. I'm from Wikitip, which mainly focuses on SNS. I'd like to ask the people who come from the broadcasting companies, and when I watch CNN or other broadcasting networks from about 3 or 4 years ago, they mainly cover the viewers' response on the tweets and the introducing to the by on air. But nowadays, I think this kind of flow is now decreasing. Is there any problem, and it needs some kinds of checking more again how to introduce the tweet responses and how to the media can introduce the tweets without any checking the authenticity or other kinds of things? And want to hear some responses for people come from the broadcasting company. Thank you.
I think that we've had to experiment over the last few years with how to properly integrate social media into some of our broadcast TV shows, and some of it has been effective and some of it has not looked quite that good. I don't think that actually reading tweets on the TV screen while I'm watching a show is a particularly great experience for me, because if I do see a tweet, I want to dive in there and start that two-way conversation. So we're not in the habit of just putting tweets up there which are speculation around a news story. So we will want to curate on certain shows and around certain news stories rather than put everything up. I think it's our job to filter and to give context and understanding rather than just throw everything up and wait for the audience to make up their own mind. Does that help?
Yes.
I want to ask Mr. Richard Porter. Until today, in our newsrooms, we were sending some reporters, correspondents to the area, and we are getting the news from there. After this user-generated content era, are we going to have some editors and not to send our reporters to the area? And are we going to have some editors in our newsrooms, and then they are going to choose some contents which being sent by users? Are we going to change the shapes and contents of our newsrooms?
I don't think it's an either-or answer, actually. I think we will continue to invest heavily in the kind of journalism that I showed you earlier, where a team of people commit over a long period to getting to the front line, getting to a story and being able to tell a story firsthand themselves. And I think that has a great deal of power and authenticity, and is still an absolutely kind of core function of the kind of journalism that we do. But I think in addition to that, absolutely, we will make use of material that is filmed by people on their smartphones or whatever devices they're using. And the point I was trying to make earlier is that in doing that, we have to apply the same values, the same editorial values to that material as we do to the material that we film ourselves. So the reason we have this team of people, which we call the user-generated content hub, those people are the ones who are checking out that material and going back to the source as much as they possibly can and trying to find out where it's come from and what the context is and what more information they can get from it. And, as I said, they're also trying to stop things from being published that are wrong, that are false, that are untrue. And that has become an extremely important job in newsrooms now that just simply didn't exist a few years ago. But it's not one or the other. I think we now live in a world where for the organizations like mine, it's important to do both of those things.
I also wanted to ask Hani, you said verification is at the core of our job, and that's what differentiates us. And you said you're filtering 70,000 videos a day. How do you do that? Do we have an algorithm that we use? There was a question up there before. If can you scroll it down, please? Yes. There are now complex algorithms for fact-checking, cross-referencing. Will role of professional journalists change? But realistically, how do you filter 70,000 videos and verify it?
That's very much to the point that Richard was raising now. I think the user-generated content, amateur videos sent by what we call citizen journalists, is becoming day after day part of our day-to-day work. In Al Jazeera English, covering Syria is very difficult. We're not on the ground. We don't have access to as in many other places, and there is quite a new workflow I think in every modern newsroom today that allows a team of journalists and producers working on the authentication, verification of videos and news lines coming, flooding actually the newsroom every minute probably. The example I used in the Arab Spring time 2 years ago, this was not an exaggeration, 70,000 videos a day, I remember from Egypt. And when you have this big number of videos coming in, you cannot just go and air it and put it live on the screen. It's a big job, and it's becoming part of our daily workflow, as I said.
Yes. Go ahead, Jed, and then.
Sorry. Just in terms of verifying truth, one of the things that I just wanted to introduce very quickly is how we're working with disaster organizations around the world. So whenever there's a fire, or whenever there's an earthquake, or whenever there's other disasters, the sheer volume of the tweets that are coming in and how geographically they're mapped in gives us some more assurance of whether that's taking place or not. So we're, for example, working with fire departments, and there's often tweets to the fire department saying there is a fire. But it's a rare case when you have only like 1 or 2 people tweeting a very big fire. It's unlikely that is true. But when you get like 2,000 tweets from like 2 streets talking about the same kind of fire, photographed from like 25 angles, the fire department has more assurance that maybe they need to dig deeper into it. And I think that's the kind of data discovery and buzz analysis that we can do to complement some of the more journalistic verification that may be going on.
Yes, Jed.
I'd also like to add that we should, while verification and journalism reporting is really important, I think today's news opportunity is also about creating new voices. And the way that opinions and editorial and analysis can be also an important source for what audiences want. We have new channels on YouTube, such as the Young Turks or SourceFed, who really don't do anything with respect to verification of news. That's not their job. What they do is they're adding into the conversation that audiences care about. And so they're talking about subjects. And I think that's a really important thing not to get lost here, right? CNN clearly was one of the leading ones around the world that emerged with new voices in a time when they had much more time to talk about the news because they had 24 hours. Now we are not limited by time. We're not limited by linear television. And I think that's an important part of the conversation we should all be thinking about today, which is while verification and journalism remain critically important, there's also an opportunity to bring new voices to audiences that care a lot about these subjects, whether they're big, broad subjects like Syria, or they're much narrower subjects in things like tech news or political news that matter around the world.
It feels like, I'm so sorry, but it feels like we just opened up a Pandora's box, and we'd like to talk more about it, but we're unfortunately out of time. I won't be able to take any of your questions, but if you have questions, please send them tweets or Facebook them, befriend them, and ask them questions directly. We have a new era now. Should we go and do a little 20-second wrap-up of what, the last comments from each panelist? Yeah?
Wow, no seconds warning for a 20-second wrap-up. Look,
140 words.
Yeah, so I repeat, be comfortable with chaos, embrace it, be true to your core values as a journalist, and be excited about it, because I think we're living in very, very exciting times for journalists right now. I think that was 16 seconds.
Thanks, Nick. Yes?
I think that the bottom line is we do all agree that the times are changing for the media. There is no way we can say the television channels, the traditional media as we know it, is dying. It's more of a complementary work, integration and interaction, while preserving and maintaining our news values is the key to go with our job.
I had a chance to read the questions, through Twitter beforehand, and I was waiting for my chance to answer that. But
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay. Somebody asked me, why Korean audience tend to go to the Naver instead of KBS homepage. They started first. And they have more information. And as I pointed out during my presentation, we were lazy. I mean, so far, our homepage has been the dumping, place for the broadcast scripts. So we need to develop or even create more attractive ways or platform to come to the audience.
Thank you for your frank comment. Yes, Jae?
I think, without a doubt, we're in the most empowered time for both those who can supply us news information as well as where we can go get it. And so I think the number one message that I take all the time for myself is how to embrace this, not how to push it away. And so with that, thank you all for having us here today.
I think the world is such a diverse place, and we touched a little bit on attention span, but I think the reality is that there's so much going on in the world that is really interesting, and technology allows people to find what's really relevant for them that's happening right now. And I think the more we can work with broadcasters and news organizations to help each individual audience find what's really relevant for them, real time, for them, customized, I think we will be serving a public cause, and so I want to work with all of you to make that happen.
And more or less the same message from me, actually. Think about the audience first. Think about what is their need and how can your organization, my organization, serve that in a way which is useful and relevant and clear, and all the factors we've already talked about today. It's about, this is an era where the audience is in control and we have to serve them.
All of us journalists right now are in search of answers to that solution. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I think we have lunchtime after this. Luke?
Okay, we're going to wrap things up here now, and we're going to head off to lunch. First of all, thank you so much, Julie. Thanks to the panelists. That was incredible. Thank you. And thanks to all of you, too. Thanks to all of you for sending in your questions. That's what makes this an interactive conference, and I hope that you'll continue doing that throughout session 2 and session 3. But first, lunch. Lunch will be co-hosted by KBS and KCA, and that will be held in the Rosemary and Lavender Room on the 4th floor. That's just one floor above us. The next session will start at 2 p.m., so you've got lunch from now until 2 p.m. Lunch starts at 12:30, so let's make our way on upstairs. Thank you, guys. Thank you.